Okay.
Okay, just recording now. Hello and welcome. My name is John. I'm with Broadsheet, and we're very honoured to have you aboard for Tomorrow Tonight. We're joined by Derek Mooney, Broadsheet columnist, public affairs consultant, former Fianna Fáil government advisor, ministerial advisor, and erstwhile Fianna Fáil member still.
No, I ceased to be a member in June.
Yeah, but kind of still.
If they were stuck, I'd help them out, but they'd want to be really stuck.
Okay, they're pretty stuck.
Well, this is another big point, yeah.
We're going to go straight into the papers, Derek, if you don't mind.
No problem.
We'll have a look at your column from today,
Yeah.
Leaving Cert and the uncertainty of the Leaving Cert. And,
yeah.
Okay, should we go through this from the Irish Dan?
Yeah.
From the Irish Daily Mail, first glimmer of hope. Holland warns hospitals and ICU situations worsening, but case and positivity rates offered the first glimmer of hope.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting piece from tonight's NEFIT briefing, which is the numbers are slightly down, but they're still, like, we're still talking about 4 digits. So it was just short of 5,000. So they're still, but it is, if you chart it over the couple of weeks, it's the first real dip, in as much as there's been a dip. But you're right, which is the hospitals are struggling. We've seen some coverage. I know Claire burned anything outside the Mater Hospital tonight, but even looking at the...
Was she outside tonight? Was she outside the hospital?
Yeah, she was outside. I didn't watch it now. I didn't. Okay. I don't know why I just didn't. I just felt there was a better way of doing this. I think people need to know what's going on in the hospitals. I think people need to know that it's young people who are now being affected. And I think that point was made by the Claire Byrne show, which I think there's better ways of doing it. But on the 6-1 News, the head of the emergency department was interviewed and was making very, very clear that they were just on the pin of their collar. I think Paul Reid from the HSE has made this point fairly well as well. But I think it is good to hear from the frontline staff, in fairness. But there's a better way of doing it than standing outside the Mater.
They were actually out on the street.
They were standing outside the Mater, interviewing staff as they were coming off duty, yeah.
Okay. And they've been asked not by the staff, but by Twitter, I guess.
That I don't know. I mean, I saw 1 or 2 people saying no, that they understood that this had been okayed and authorised once they were outside. I mean, look, just in these circumstances, they could hardly be going around the IC units or going around the intensive care units. I mean, just given the particular nature of it. So it was, but I just wonder, was there a better way of doing it?
Yeah. Well,
but look, again, at the end of the day, it's important that the information get out there.
Yeah, I just remember wasn't Rona interviewed by Miriam in the Mater at that time?
Yeah.
So just the Irish Sun, Blue Angel student nurses on our COVID wards from just €2.56 per hour.
Yeah.
This is last
again. This has been a running issue with student nurses. You had the vote in the Oireachtas last year. A couple of weeks ago, just over a month ago, and where the government had said there was going to be a review. This is one that's going to run, and kind of claiming that my own kind of former background is in industrial relations, and what I was actually kind of originally went through, and there's a kind of that rule, where you're sitting in negotiation and somebody said, look, we'd love to do that, but our rules won't allow us. Well, then the next answer is, we'll go back and change our rules. And I think there seems to be some suggestion, people saying, well, look, under the various national pay agreements and et cetera, that's not going to allow it. I think something's going to have to be done. These kind of headlines. And I understand that this is probably some kind of, these are individual cases. This is about paid over, et cetera. And then there's a couple of things within that. I'm sure that the HSE would argue that this is not as straightforward as that headline would suggest. But one way or the other, this is not a good look. We are saying that all of us we're all in this together, that we need to spend whatever it takes to do this. Well, it can't be done on the back of student nurses.
Okay. Is this a Fine Gael kind of push, or is this a...
No, I don't. I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't have thought so. No, what you had was but again, which is, look, public pay is a very, very complicated issue.
Yeah, but I mean, at this stage, I think at this stage, though, that the nurses, this payment is going to have to be a special payment for them.
there's going to have to be something. There will have to be some formulation found in around it.
Who's going to stop it? It's been going on for weeks. Like you say, it's in every...
No, I mean, what happened is that there was the motion in the Dáil some time back, where the opposition put down a motion, the government put down a counter motion and voted it down, which was not a good look.
No.
And certainly, knowing from talking to Fianna Fáil TDs and from other TDs as well, they were not comfortable being whipped through the lobbies to vote against nurses. I mean, look, you don't have to swing a cat in this country. You'll hit somebody who's a son, daughter, aunt, uncle, sister, brother, who's a nurse in some way or the other. So the idea that you could get away with this is crazy. No, I accept as a much complex, like all HR issues, these are far more complex than they might look on the surface. But a solution needs to be found to this. And I think it's just...
so much money going around at the moment, Derek. I mean, it seems almost kind of churlish. They're throwing money, really, literally, you know. Okay.
And again, I'm not actually, the impression has been given that we're trying to do this on the cheap. We're trying to do this in the back of a group of student nurses, and it's not fair. I just think that's not going to go on. Again, look, I think that, COVID is going to dominate the headlines everywhere. So you're going with a kind of rationing ICU care for those with the best chance. I mean, that's a horrendous headline in terms of not faulting the sub-editors, but there's something that you have to read is that people would even be talking in those terms. That's like that we need to ration care is not particularly when we have private hospitals potentially on call, etc. So that's an alarming headline. And then in the centre there you have the people, the survivors get mother and baby homes report, which I think is an issue that's going to run and run.
Yeah, I want to get onto that just in a second, but also I just want to say that I want to give bylines if I can. Neve Griffin, Paul Hosford, and Neil Michael on that story. That's an extraordinary headline, Derek. Really, isn't it?
It is, and it's as I say again. This is not a criticism of the Examiner. It is just saying that you find, and it's a quote. So it's not that something that some editor came up with. It's a quote, and that's just something that really would scare you. That you're potentially probably not across the country. I think they make it clear that this is in one hospital. But the fact that this is happening in any hospital.
Yeah.
Look, there's no question doubt that all hospitals are on the pin on the collar, that all hospitals are struggling to cope. Look, we even saw, I think yesterday, the day before in Northern Ireland, the Northwestern Health Board or whatever, the Northern Western region, were doing a large call for all staff off duty to come in immediately because they were so pressurised and such demands. So I think, look, we got to look at these things.
Okay, and so the Survivors Get Mother and Baby Homes report, just on that headline, they get it 4 days after the Sunday Independent get it, but I suppose
that's the issue, which is, look, that this is a report. I think it's an episode of Yes Minister, which is that leaking is one of those irregular verbs. I make an informal briefing, you leak, he broke the Official Secrets Act. There is an element which all governments leak to a certain degree. All governments do give advance copies to newspapers, etc. This is a situation where I think everyone, any person with any political brain, knowing the issue, knowing what problems the mother and baby home caused last year, knowing the huge, deep political embarrassment there was when they were talking about access to data and access to people's records, the idea that somebody somewhere would think that this is something appropriate to give out to a newspaper, it's just crazy. Newspapers, it is their job, it is the nature of the beast to get a story, to get a leak.
Oh yeah. It's not about the leak, though. Do you think it's part of a media strategy as one of the?
I don't know. Again, which is, look, you can speculate away with this.
Rather than just a leak, do you think that this is a planned PR exercise? We're going to get the damage out. We're going to give the victims their chance to sort of tell their stories. We're just going to brush the trafficking.
Whether it's the case or not, I don't know. But you would imagine that in terms of that somebody had a media strategy and said, well, look, what we should do is kind of give a kind of preparatory, let people know this is coming. There's a difference between saying the report is coming, it's going to be published, it's going to be circulated, and giving tracts of it out to somebody. So I don't know. I mean, I think that this is something that has to be inquired into. I think the Gardaí should be brought in to look at this and to find out exactly where it came from. If you're to listen to the Green Party sources, they seem to be pointing it not necessarily at any individual or any single place, but they point things in a broad direction. And that would be very, very concerning. And look, this is a government that just survives on trust. And if this breaks down between two of the parties, it has a problem.
Yeah, because
and this is a very emotional issue for it to break down on.
Yeah, it's more than that though, Derek, because it's like there's been so many delays with this report.
Oh yeah,
so many delays, and we assume that like the Minister O'Gorman's had it since last summer, technically.
Well, not too sure he's had the no, but he's had this in terms of the commission report, the rest of the timelines he's had the broad structure of the broad overview of it. But he had undertaken with the victim to do a whole range of things, and in fairness, he has done that now.
But he gave
you're dealing with a number of victims groups. You have a number of victim groups who have individual concerns within this whole overview. And so therefore, there's a lot of people who need to be spoken to. There's a lot of ground that needs to be prepared. That has to be done essentially through trust. It has to be done through personal contacts and absolute assurances. And then you say, look, everyone's going to get this report at the same time. Victims are going to get it first. They're going to get a chance to see it. They're not going to read about it in the newspapers. You're going to get a hard copy of the full report into your hand before you read about it in leaks. It is an incredible abuse of trust for it to go back on that. And that is an incalculable, and that's something that doesn't damage one minister, it damages the entire government. Yeah. So I don't think it was a deliberate attempt to expose anyone or to gazump somebody. It is somebody who does not grasp that this is how government works. That across government, this is something that damages all of the government, everyone within the government, not just one party within it.
Yeah, well, okay. Probably talk about that again next week or whatever. I mean, yeah. It shouldn't go away, but that aspect isn't the most important. Yeah. The report itself, obviously. On the Irish World, we had Bernard Purcell, the editor, last week on the show, and another apology, but still no action. This is their headline.
Yeah. Again, which is, look, this is something that I think a lot of people would say in this country, which is we're great at setting this in, but our implementation of reports is not great. We produce the report, we accept the analysis. There is a kind of attitudinal change, but the actual hard nuts and bolts of these things don't change.
Yeah.
And look, it is incredibly complicated, incredibly painful, and there is no political points in there. This is the whole point. There is no political points. Everyone equally takes a hit on this, and particularly the state, and particularly state institutions.
Yeah. Yeah, just this is the Irish World. This their IW2 part. Eamon Farrell, who's Rolling News, he's the photographer for his agency. We use Rolling News there.
Yeah,
Eamon. So that's Eamon. He's got an online exhibition.
Yeah. There's some great shots there. I think it was you see Van Morrison, you see Mo Mowlam. Actually, an excellent photograph of Mo Mowlam.
Yeah, and I think that's McAleese with the Queen and in Grove.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I don't have to realise that now.
Yeah. And Crunch Time. Are you a rugby man, Derek?
No. If forced, and I was given a free ticket, I might go, but that's a bit better. Yeah.
Okay. Telegraph pressure on NHS for COVID vaccinations around the clock.
Yeah.
That's actually
again. We'll just look. It's. I put it no stronger than this. It is interesting to watch the British coverage when their vaccination rate is so far ahead of ours, and how people are really angry that that's not going fast enough in the UK. And just to watch it from our vantage point, I think it is just intriguing. Where many people here would be deeply satisfied if we had a vaccination rate of similar speed and similar.
I
won't say efficiency, but certainly.
Yeah. Well, there are those who won't take it, Derek. You know, I mean,
no, there are. I mean, and again, you see various surveys of numbers, etc. You see maybe 60-70% of people are happy to take it, whatever. And I was watching CNN the other night, and there was some extraordinary number of medical staff.
Yeah, that's it. Frontline staff.
That was really scary one, but there are people in nursing homes and care homes in the US. Yeah. I don't think that's. I don't know if I saw it online or something. But I think that so far of the nursing homes that have been done in terms of the staff and in terms of the patients and the people in nursing homes, nobody has refused it so far, was my understanding as of yesterday or the day before.
Yeah. Will you take it, Derek?
Oh, absolutely. I'll take it. I'll take it when it's given. Yeah.
Right.
And again, I don't want to take it a moment before I'm entitled to do it. I'm just outside the 60+ bracket.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but
Okay.
just one of the moments where I am adding years to my age, if I could take, but look, I'll take it when I could. I can't get it.
You wouldn't have an issue with me not taking it, and you and I going out then for a drink or something like that, would you? Or would you prefer not to be around me because I
Well, I mean, again, this is something we discussed last week in terms of being on an airplane.
well, just hypothetically, I mean, would you?
Yeah. No, the thing about it is, which is taking it and getting a shot is not absolute.
Yeah,
It just it boosts your thing, and so therefore, are you still a contagion risk? Well, you are. That's as simple as that. So, would I be concerned to the point that I turned out and I'm not going near you? No, but the point I'd say, would I be cautious? Yeah.
It depends on who's buying the pints, probably. I guess.
Well, it depends who's washing the glasses afterwards and who's out of this.
Okay.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, when you're leaving, you're not getting a handshake or a hug or the rest of it. You're getting away from a distance, and you're going home in a different car.
Right. So if you were going to, say, a business meeting, and you were very, I don't know, hypochondriac or whatever, psychosomatic.
Yeah, I'm not particularly, by the way. Yeah.
No, but if you were, and there were people present at that meeting who hadn't been vaccinated, would you?
Yeah, I would be concerned. I mean, certainly in part of the business stuff I'm involved in, that is one of the things we're looking at, because one of the things I run is I'm involved in running a network of European HR directors. And we should do about kind of 3 or 4 meetings a year in Brussels and Barcelona, and then training programs, etc., then incidental meetings. So one of the things we're looking at is what are we going to do in 2022? Because 2021 has been all online. And a lot of what we do is kind of networking, and I mean networking just in terms of sharing information, sitting down, talking about developments, what's happening, etc. And particularly on the future of work, nature work, and all this kind of stuff. And so we're okay, we think maybe we might be able to meet in September, but we know that's going to be an issue for a lot of people. We know that people traveling to Brussels or traveling to wherever we have, whatever venue we have, probably will need to show that they're vaccinated before they get on a plane.
Right. Yeah.
But what protocols can we bring in thereafter at a meeting? We can't make it absolutely mandatory, because we don't have a right to, under that, but we can't turn around and say, well, listen, unless you can show me a certificate. Yeah. But it will have to be on an honour-based system. Like, our meetings are conducted under Chatham households and the rest, so a lot of it is honour-based. But we will say to them, listen, we ask people that before you come to the meeting, if you're not vaccinated, watch it remotely. We'll open the feed and the rest of it.
Right.
But I think that is an issue. But it's something we haven't finalised, but it is an issue, and I think it is going to be a concern to people.
Like an insurance risk in terms of if you were organising a meeting, you would be liable.
Well, that's the thing, because people are attending our meetings, they're at work. So therefore their employer would be liable. So we would imagine, in many cases they're the HR directors, but in terms of there would be a liability from there. So if somebody caught COVID while they're attending one of our meetings, there certainly would be a liability.
Yeah, well, okay.
And it could well be that the venues, that the hotel to turn around and say, well, look, one of the requirements we have. Now, there's a point where you can argue, like in terms of, I can't remember what the figures up the other day, which is like there was about 1 million and something flu vaccines are given out per year. And I have never had the flu vaccine for no particular reason. Just I've never had the flu bad, etc. Now from here, like this year, if I thought I needed the flu vaccine, I would have had it. But we've never made the condition of having the flu vaccine to attend a meeting.
No.
So, but I think it's about the perceived threat and the relative threat.
Yeah.
If in 2 years' time people have received, like vaccination rates are 70-80% or whatever, and then people have had their booster and had their second shot, etc., then I think maybe to less so. But I think certainly this year, I think people will be very, very concerned with that. It'll certainly be a big factor.
We've got exactly 4 minutes left. So,
okay.
Carlos Tokos Lives, this is told not to stop for a chat.
Yeah. Again, this is about socialising. It's told about social distancing, etc., which is particularly the latest variant, which just seems to be incredibly contagious. So that seems to be just a factor, which is, look, just keep your social distance, keep your 2 meters and keep moving and keep covered up.
But what this is like genuinely a kind of not Orwellian nature, but it's sort of brave new world, told not to stop for chat.
No, it isn't. What you say? But again, I thought only some figures and TB, which is a couple of years ago.
Stock of the actual guidelines, aren't you? Surely this guy Whitty with the crazy eye.
No, well, I'm sure it's one of those things where he was asked a question and gave a specific answer to a specific question, and then that's kind of said, well, let's see if he wrote this into the guidelines. But again, so what are the guidelines? The guidelines are maintain social distancing, wear a mask.
Well, then,
so how are you going to have a chat? Can you have a chat while you're socially distanced? And you possibly can, but just saying to people, sometimes people forget. And like a lot of people forget. A lot of people become kind of
But
easy
don't you
about
feel
it.
there's a sinister social engineering aspect to all this? Like
No, I don't. Again, I
we're being
really think
divided. We're being literally divided, like physically divided. It's strange.
we are, but we're done for a very specific reason, which is either we can either deal with this quickly and nail it down, or we can do what happened in 1918 when people didn't have the same understanding of it, and it rolls on for 4 or 5 years. Or you can do what happened with TB, where it rolls on for years and years and years.
Okay.
So we're saying, listen, how do you deal with this as quickly as you possibly can? Now, it requires a hell of a cost, a hell of a price to pay, but that is preferable to this running on. And I do accept that the death rates are not as high because the extreme, or because we are going so far in trying to suppress it.
Okay.
Now, at the moment, we have one weapon, which is suppression. Oh, sorry, up to last December, we had one weapon suppression. Now we've got the other weapon, which is vaccination. Between the two, we should be back to some form of relative normality by June, July, August, and September, October.
Yeah, this is
slowly getting back into
this
it.
is like it's like an ongoing soap opera. Okay, the Morning Star, which is you get
It is absolutely. I never leave home without it, but again, I haven't left home for the last 2 months. So
yeah, so Labour backs pay time off to get the jab. Morning Star is very pro-vaccine, lockdown. Derek, you're on the same hymn sheet with these guys, and Financial Times.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there is a very broad consensus. I know that we've had kind of a certain, possibly on the right or on the kind of the slightly more extreme wing of the right, who are saying anything, this is a breach of personal freedoms, etc. Do I have a right to get infected? Yeah. Do I have a right to infect others? No. So I think you got to balance that one out.
I've annoyingly didn't leave enough time for us now. We've ran out of time, but Merkel attacks Twitter's ban and Trump is breach of free speech, which is interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think everybody could go into what she said. She says basically that this is something we should be careful about, we should be cautious about, that you can't just start clamping down on free speech. Totally. Doesn't necessarily attack it, just explains. And coming from a German background, you can understand why anyone in Germany have very, very big concerns about data privacy and have very big concerns about any curtailment of free speech. Well, Derek,
there are many historical reasons here.
Derek, most of our readers were absolutely celebrating all the bannings on YouTube and all that. It's an amazing situation we're in, isn't it?
It is, because what you're seeing is, what you see, you've got to look at the extremes of what we saw last Wednesday. And what we're seeing now is that what happened last Wednesday wasn't just as mild as it appeared that day.
Okay.
When you look in depth at it.
Okay. Well, that's probably for another day, because we literally got about 30 seconds, which I'm just going to mention your column from today.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
It's a very simple thing, which is I am totally agnostic on whether the Leaving Cert should go ahead or not. I have no irons in the fire. I have no close relatives who are sitting the Leaving Cert this year.
Yeah.
All right, our family members, to say, sitting the Leaving Cert this year. But certainly if I'm talking to people, etc., I think the big worry now at the moment isn't, does a Leaving Cert go ahead as a traditional exam, or does it go ahead as an assessment? It is, when are we going to know? And we need to know as soon as possible, because people need to prepare. And I think that's what the government needs to focus on, is getting clarity as soon as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Derek. I'm very sorry about running out of time. Derek's column is on the site today. Derek, hopefully see you next Monday night.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers. Take care.
Cheers.